Every retirement guide you've ever read says the same thing. Don't claim Social Security at 62. Wait. The longer you wait, the bigger the check. And for a lot of people, that advice is correct. Mathematically, it holds up. But here's what none of those articles ever tell you. They're treating one of the most personal decisions in your entire retirement like a simple math problem. They run an average across the whole country, hand you a single number, and call it advice. As if your health, your marriage, your bank account, and the actual years you have left are just variables to smooth over on a spreadsheet. They're not. And for a real, significant number of people, maybe people who look a lot like you, claiming at 62 isn't settling for less. It's the smartest move on the table. Not because the math magically reverses, but because the math was never the whole picture to begin with. So, here are 4 reasons why taking your benefit early might be exactly right for your life, and exactly what you need to know before you make that decision. Because getting it wrong isn't something you get to redo. Reason 1. Your health is telling you something the spreadsheet cannot hear. The entire argument for waiting is built on one assumption, that you will live long enough to make it worth the wait. Here is how that math actually works. If you claim at 62, your monthly benefit is reduced by roughly 30% compared to what you would receive at your full retirement age of 67. When you delay, the total cumulative payments from the higher monthly amount eventually catch up to and surpass what you would have collected by claiming early. That crossover point, the break-even age, typically lands somewhere between 80 and 82. If you live past 82, waiting was financially superior. If you do not, claiming early gets you more total money over your actual lifetime. So here's the question the spreadsheet cannot answer for you. How long do you think you will live? That sounds like a morbid question, but it is actually a practical one. And for a lot of retirees, the honest answer is not necessarily as long as the national average assumes. Think about someone like Frank. He is 62. He spent 40 years in physically demanding work, construction, manufacturing, the kind of career that builds a community and wears a body down at the same time. His knees ache. His blood pressure is up. He looks at his family and sees that the men in his line did not tend to make it much past their early 70s. Conventional advice says push through 5 more years to reach full retirement age and collect the bigger check. But that advice is not looking at Frank's life. It is looking at averages. Every additional year Frank keeps working is a year that does more damage to the body he is trying to protect for retirement. And if he passes away at 75, years before the typical break-even point, he will have endured all of that for a bigger check he barely had time to cash. Meanwhile, the years between 62 and 75, years he could have spent resting, traveling, and actually living, would be gone. For Frank, claiming at 62 is not giving up. It is making sure that he is the one who benefits from his own lifetime of work. For anyone with real, documented health concerns or a family history that does not favor longevity, the break-even analysis does not tell the full story. The full story includes how many good years exist right now and what that time is actually worth. Reason 2. For married couples, early claiming can be the smartest team play. For married couples, this decision is not one choice. It is 2. And coordinating them strategically can do something that claiming separately never could. Maximize the income the surviving spouse will live on for potentially decades after the first spouse is gone. Here is a strategy that is underused and worth understanding clearly. The lower-earning spouse claims early, at 62. The higher-earning spouse delays, ideally all the way to 70. The lower earner's reduced check provides household income during the waiting years, acting as a financial bridge. And while that bridge is holding, the higher earner's future benefit grows at 8% per year for every year past full retirement age, a guaranteed, risk-free increase that no investment can reliably match. Take Bob and Betty. Bob is the higher earner with a full benefit of $3,000 a month at 67. Betty's full benefit is $1,200. They are both 62. If Bob waits until 70, his $3,000 grows by 24%, reaching about $3,720 a month before cost of living adjustments. Betty claims at 62, receiving a reduced benefit of around $840 a month. That check is not a failure. It is the bridge that pays bills, lets their retirement accounts keep growing, and buys Bob the time to maximize his benefit. When Bob turns 70 and claims his $3,720, the household income jumps significantly. But here is the most important number in this whole plan. When Bob passes away, Betty does not keep both checks. No one does. She keeps whichever was larger. If Bob maximized to $3,720, Betty steps up to that amount for the rest of her life. Now run the same scenario where both claim at 62. Bob's benefit is reduced to around $2,100. That becomes Betty's ceiling as a survivor for the rest of her widowhood. The difference between $2,100 and $3,720 per month over 15 or 20 years of surviving is the kind of number that determines whether Betty is comfortable or struggling. The lower-earning spouse claiming at 62 is not the weak link in this plan. It is the move that funds the waiting period while protecting the most important benefit of all, the income the surviving spouse will depend on. Reason 3. Sometimes you simply need the money, and that is enough. In a perfect world, retirement unfolds the way the plan said it would. But most people know life does not always cooperate. A job loss at 61, a medical expense that wipes out the emergency fund, a parent who needs care, a mortgage that does not stop arriving because the income did. For millions of Americans, claiming Social Security at 62 is not a choice between a good option and a great one. It is the difference between managing and drowning. When that is the reality, the concept of a larger check at 67 or 70 is not just less appealing, it is genuinely irrelevant. The mortgage does not wait 5 years. The prescription does not negotiate. Social Security was built to be a foundation, and using it as one when it is genuinely needed is not a failure of planning. It is the program doing exactly what it was designed to do. One thing worth knowing clearly if this is the situation: the earnings test. If benefits are claimed before full retirement age and there is still employment income, Social Security will withhold $1 of benefits for every $2 earned above $23,400 in 2025. In the year full retirement age is reached, the threshold rises to $62,000, and the withholding is $1 for every $3 earned above it. Here is the part many people do not know. When full retirement age arrives, the SSA recalculates the benefit and gives credit for those withheld months. The monthly check increases from that point forward. This means claiming at 62 while working part-time is not necessarily as damaging as it sounds. The withheld benefits come back into the calculation. No one should feel embarrassed about using their own earned benefit to get through a hard stretch. That is not poor planning. That is exactly what the system is for. Reason 4. A dollar at 63 is worth more to your life than a dollar at 83. This is the reason that does not show up in any spreadsheet, because it is not a financial calculation. It is a quality of life one. There is a window in retirement that researchers and retirement counselors call the go-go years. It typically runs through the 60s and into the early 70s, the stretch when the body is still willing, the health is still cooperating, the energy is still there. These are the years for the cross-country road trip, for chasing grandkids, for picking up the hobby that got set down 30 years ago. The years where the RV actually gets driven and the passport actually gets used. That window does not stay open forever. The slow-go years come after it, and after that, spending shifts from experiences to healthcare costs. The conventional argument says, take the smaller check now and get the bigger check in your 80s. But what the bigger check in the 80s does not buy back is the decades of experience that come before it. A dollar at 63, when there is still the health to hike a trail or visit family across the country, is worth more to the actual lived quality of retirement than the same dollar at 83, mathematically the same, experientially completely different. This reason is most valid for people who have other retirement income to cover essential expenses, a pension, a solid 401k, other assets, and can use Social Security as a supplement for living rather than as the primary lifeline. When that is the case, the smaller early check can become what some people call a freedom fund, the money that makes the good years better rather than the money that barely covers the bills. It is a deliberate trade-off, a smaller monthly amount in exchange for more good years spent actually using it. For a lot of people, that is not a bad deal. Before wrapping up, there are two things that need to be said directly. First, if benefits are claimed at 62 and there is still significant employment income, the earnings test matters. Review those thresholds, understand how the withholding works, and know what the recalculation at full retirement age does and does not fix. Second, the reduction for claiming at 62 is permanent, not until full retirement age. Permanent. That reduced baseline is also what the annual cost of living adjustments will be applied to going forward. Over a 25-year retirement, that difference compounds. Any decision made now will follow the check for the rest of life. None of that means claiming early is wrong. It means it needs to be a deliberate decision with full awareness of the trade, not a default, not a panic, and not something done simply because a neighbor did it or a headline made it sound inevitable. The right decision here is not the one that produces the highest number on a calculator. It is the one that fits the health situation, the family picture, the financial reality, and the way this particular retirement is actually going to be lived. For a meaningful number of people, those factors point toward 62. For others, they point toward waiting. Both answers can be right, just for different people. The important thing is making the call with the full picture, not just the one piece of it that shows up on a financial planning website.